We're going to explore the history of the area of Pimlico. This is a London area just south of Westminster, which, despite its proximity to the seat of government, was still rural well into the 19th century. So in the 1950s, the filmmakers at Ealing Studios made the movie Passport to Pimlico. Ealing Studios was attracted to this particular London suburb as it had a particular London name. Like the name Soho, it's just darned unusual. Pimlico had previous names, Ebury and the Five Fields, before its unusual name caught on. There's a suggestion that Pimlico might have been named after a person. He was Ben Pimlico, a man famed for serving nut brown ale in his alehouse. Ben Pimlico's tea gardens were actually located near Hoxton, with the route to them known as the Pimlico Path. This suggests that the current area of Pimlico may have borrowed its name from the popularity of this Hoxton destination, and likely acquired its unusual name in the late 16th century. Until the 18th century, Pimlico was off the edge of most London maps as it was considered unimportant. But in the 16th century, 500 acres of the Manor of Ebury came into the possession of a young girl called Mary Davis. Her marriage to Thomas Grosvenor brought the land into the Grosvenor family ownership. The Grosvenors may well be Britain's all-time most fortunate family. They came into serious wealth by being landowners in the right place at the right time. At the time the Grosvenor family were entering this story, Pimlico was just marshy emptiness with two large named areas, Tothill Fields and neat houses. Tothill Fields was an indistinct area of Westminster, defined as laying south of St James's Park. One of its main features was the Bridewell Penitentiary. This was one of the less severe places of incarceration in the capital, as one of the main punishments was not being allowed to talk to other prisoners. Following demolition, its foundations were reused for Westminster Cathedral, which now occupies its site. Otherwise, Tothill was a vast expanse of semi-bog, but notable in the history of British sport. Between 1735 and 1752, an area was cleared to become the home venue of the Westminster Cricket Club. The earliest known match there was in August 1735, when Westminster defeated London by 3 wickets. Tothill Fields was also a place where horse racing was organised, and this took place until 1798. Some homes were built along the Thames, and these were called neat houses. Behind these houses, the neat house gardens, were osier beds and fields, which covered about 100 acres. John Rock's 1746 maps of London offer a wealth of historical detail. The Pimlico area features the neat house gardens prominently, spanning an expanse of market gardens depicted with meticulous rows of vegetables. Alas, John Rock placed his fancy scale for his map over the top of the area, but small ditches, visible on the map, drained the marshy land. Rock's map shows the neat house gardens extending westward along the Thames from near today's Horseferry Road to the current railway bridge. Tothill Fields are marked in the centre of the map, and there was a tidal creek marked on the Rock map. This can be seen better on the 1820s map of the area. And other developments feature on this 1820s view. Vauxhall Bridge, for instance, was built between 1809 and 1816 as part of a scheme for redeveloping the south bank of the Thames. The bridge was built at a location on the river previously served by a ferry. A new road links the northern end of Vauxhall Bridge with Hyde Park Corner. Building has spread south from Westminster, and Tothill Fields are starting to disappear under bricks and mortar. One of the first encroachments on the neat houses was Millbank Prison, also known as the Millbank Penitentiary. This prison was opened in 1816 on the later site of the Tate Britain Art Gallery. The complex design featured a hexagonal central courtyard surrounded by other courtyards. The prison's design proved quite problematic. Its maze-like corridors confused even the warders, and the design inadvertently allowed prisoners to communicate with each other between cells. Running costs were unsustainably high, and illness was rife due to the marshy location. Millbank stopped housing inmates in 1886 and closed for good in 1890. Moving the map forward by a decade, the Grosvenor Canal opened in 1824. It replaced the previous tidal creek, and during the 1830s it was in its heyday, transporting goods from this area down to the Thames. During the decade between this map and the last one, Westminster School has bagged a playground in Tothill Fields. As London's population grew in the early 19th century, pressure mounted on market gardeners to sell their land. In 1825, a certain Mr. Thomas Cubitt purchased a lease, and Neathouse Gardens' fate was then sealed. Soon, roads and buildings would replace them entirely, and the 1830s map shows the beginnings of the Cubitt plan, depicting the first roads over the site of the Neathouse Gardens. The Grosvenor estate kept the freehold of most plots built. Now Pimlico's development was more modest than neighbouring Belgravia. The area's centrepieces, Ecclestone and Warwick Squares, remain largely as Cubitt envisaged them. And unlike neighbouring Belgravia's focus on high society, this made the Grosvenors very rich, Pimlico was designed for families. It boasted convenient shopping streets, eateries, and well-appointed pubs. This all contributed to its appeal. The 1860s map shows the building of Pimlico nearly complete. Pimlico was by then home to the professional middle classes. The Grosvenor Canal was progressively shortened, and the railway terminus at Victoria was built on the canal basin. The railway at first meant lines alongside the canal, but as rail transportation became more popular, more tracks were needed, and these were built over the canal. The later Ebury Bridge took more of it away, but some of it remained in use until as late as 1995, enabling barges to be loaded with refuse for removal. This made it the last canal in London to operate commercially. The 1870s era Ordnance Survey map shows the last of the riverside gaps being built up. Where the prison was has been marked blank. And as evidenced by Booth's 1889 map of London poverty, parts of the district experienced a notable decline later in the 19th century. This shift in the area's social landscape became apparent when the Reverend Gerald Olivier, father of the future actor Laurence Olivier, relocated his family to Pimlico. Reverend Olivier's move to St Saviour's Church was part of a broader initiative to serve in London's West End slums. During the final decade of the 19th century, Pimlico saw the development of several Peabody estates. These charitable housing projects were aimed to provide affordable yet quality homes, reflecting growing concerns about housing conditions for the working classes. A note of interest on the 1890s map is the appearance of an art gallery, the future Tate Britain, on part of the site of the prison. At the turn of the 20th century, Pimlico was largely complete. We're finished with the maps now, but what is Pimlico like as a neighbourhood these days? Often overlooked, Pimlico is a gem of a neighbourhood, and the only part of the Southwest 1 postcode which is actually affordable. And while you can pay top dollar to buy a house, renting is a lot more affordable in this leafy, relaxed area tucked neatly between the Thames and Victoria Station. Locally there's the quite spectacular Regency Cafe, where folk come from miles around and actually queue for breakfast. Of course there's more traditional fare. And telephone boxes. And markets. This is actually Tatchbrook Market, At the pedestrianised end of Tatchbrook Street. During the working week it's a street food location. Of a Saturday there's more of a focus on traditional market fare like fruit and veg. Oh, and it's on the Victoria line with some groovy platform lighting.